5 months have passed since Jack and Lily Sullivan vanished into thin air of Nova Scotia, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and a community frozen in grief. Their stepfather, Daniel Martell, recently sat down to address the latest developments, the arrival of cadaver dogs on his property. According to Daniel, he continues to cooperate with the police, yet his reaction to the search feels less like a grieving parent and more like a man managing a PR crisis. He describes coming home to find the dogs already on the scene, sniffing to the corners of his life for an hour before he even arrived. He claims he didn't know the exact day they were coming, but he emphasizes one point above all others. Everything on his land has been ruled out. To Daniel, the conclusion is simple: the search should move elsewhere. But for those trained in statement analysis, his words ring with a hollow, defensive frequency. Why is his top priority deflecting speculation rather than finding his missing children? Usually, when a parent is innocent, they don't care about the speculation or the inconvenience. They care about the results. Daniel's focus is consistently inward. Even in his previous interviews, he displayed a startling level of certainty about what the dogs would find, or rather, what they wouldn't find. When asked if he was prepared for possibility of a discovery, his no was immediate. He didn't just alibi himself. He alibied everyone on the property, including his wife and his mother. For someone who claims he was drifting in and out of sleep when the children disappeared, he seems to have an omniscient grasp of who didn't do it and where the bodies aren't. This is a massive red flag. If you truly don't know what happened to your children, you should be apprehensive, curious, and perhaps even suspicious of everyone around you. Instead, Daniel is conclusive. He knows they aren't on the property. This suggests he knows exactly where they are. Furthermore, he seems to think that because the dogs found nothing, he is exonerated. In reality, if the children wandered off and perished in the harsh weather, they should have been found within a reasonable radius. The fact that they weren't doesn't prove innocence. It suggests the story of them wandering off is a fabrication. The investigation took a sharper turn when 2 specialist dogs were brought in from British Columbia. For 3 days, they scoured 40 kilometers of rugged terrain, including the Lansdowne property, the woods where a pink blanket was found, and nearby pipeline trails. Staff Sergeant Rob McCammon confirmed that no human remains or evidence associated with the file were located. While the police remain committed to finding answers, Daniel's account of his interaction with the dog handlers reveals a deep-seated friction. He recounts a handler telling him bluntly, "Your Thursday and all the way leading into Friday morning, there's not enough detail." Daniel's response to this pressure is fascinating and deeply problematic from a deceptive analysis standpoint. He argued that Thursday was just an ordinary day, and therefore there was nothing life-changing to remember until Friday morning when the nightmare began. He claims he told the investigator that because it was a normal day, there was no reason to retain any specific details. This is a classic memory hole tactic. However, logic dictates that if he truly believed his children were kidnapped or encountered a stranger, he would be desperately mining his memory for any anomaly. A strange car, a person in the woods, a weird phone call. Instead of searching his mind for clues to save the kids, he gets defensive. He even tries to flip the script on the investigator, questioning if the handler knew anything about the case. When the handler admitted to only seeing him on the news, Daniel used that to invalidate the police's line of questioning. He essentially told the investigator that since the officer didn't know the background, he shouldn't force a story on him. This defensiveness is a major red flag. A victim's family usually wants the police to be aggressive and thorough. Daniel, however, views the pursuit of detail as an attack. He is more concerned with the investigator's lack of background knowledge than he is with providing the very details that might solve the mystery of his missing children. The ordinary Thursday defense falls apart under the slightest scrutiny. Daniel insists that because nothing life-changing happened on Thursday, he shouldn't be expected to remember it. But there is a glaring contradiction in this narrative. Thursday wasn't a normal day. Records indicate that Lilly was actually sick that day and was kept home from school. Any parent knows that a sick child at home breaks the daily routine. It changes the schedule, the interactions, and the atmosphere of the house. By claiming it was just a normal day, with nothing to remember, Daniel is either intentionally lying to hide what happened during those hours, or he is such an unreliable witness that his entire timeline for Friday morning is useless. If he can't remember a day when a child was homesick, how could we trust his detailed account of the Friday morning when they went missing? His logic is self-defeating. If he only remembers life-changing events, then every minute leading up to the discovery of their disappearance on Friday should also be a blank blur. Yet, he provides specific details when it suits his narrative of innocence. This selective memory is a hallmark of manipulation. He is choosing which details to provide to police and which ones to bury under guise of an ordinary day. When the investigator pressed him, suggesting that something happened Thursday night and his story wasn't matching up, Daniel's frustration boiled over. He complained that he had already spent 20 minutes talking about Wednesday and Thursday. In his mind, the quantity of time spent talking should satisfy the police, regardless of quality or accuracy of the information provided. He keeps returning to the idea that he shouldn't have to remember things that weren't important at the time. This reveals a man who is not looking for his children, but rather a man who is looking to end an interrogation. He wants to focus off himself, and he is willing to use any logical fallacy to keep the investigators at arm's length. As the interview progresses, Daniel's rhetoric shifts from defending his memory to attacking the investigation's focus. He expresses a baffling amount of frustration over the resources being used to search his property and the surrounding woods. He laments the amount of money and people's time being wasted. He even brings up the injuries sustained by searchers in the woods. This is highly unusual behavior for a parent of missing children. Most parents will want the search to continue until every leaf was turned over, regardless of the cost to the state or the exhaustion of the searchers. They would bankrupt the province if it meant finding a single clue. Daniel, however, speaks like a taxpayer concerned about the budget or a foreman worried about workers' comp. He says, people should have just opened their eyes to see that we need to look elsewhere. This is a direct attempt to steer the investigation away from his own doorstep. He claims he has pointed many fingers and that the public and police should follow those leads instead of looking here or in the woods. The repetition of "not here" is a powerful linguistic marker. It betrays a desperate need to keep the authorities away from his immediate environment. By pointing fingers at others, he attempts to create a villain outside of the home. But the problem is that these fingers haven't led to anything. He wants the search to be case closed regarding his property because he finds the scrutiny unbearable. He frames his desire for the search to move as a concern for the community, but it's transparently a concern for his own comfort. He argues that with the technology and manpower deployed in the initial 8-kilometer radius search, the kids would have been found if they were there. While that sounds logical on the surface, it ignores the possibility that the kids never made it to those woods in the first place, or that they were moved. His insistence that they look elsewhere sounds less like a helpful tip and more like command to stop looking at him. Perhaps the most chilling part of Daniel's interview is his attempt to show emotion. When the topic of the children being missing for 5 months comes up, he begins a tangent about the start of the school year and the end of summer. One would expect a stepfather to talk about how much he misses Jack and Lily or how their empty beds feel at night. Instead, Daniel's sympathy is directed toward the other kids. He talks about how it's heartbreaking for the children in the community and the classmates who miss them. He speaks about the whole country, knowing they are missing, distancing the tragedy from his own living room and turning it into a national news event. Then, he makes a very revealing distinction regarding his own biological children. He mentions his daughters, referring to his biological children with the kid's mother, and how they know Jack and Lily are missing. He notes that it's heartbreaking for them. In this moment, he fails to include Jack and Lily in his definition of his children. He refers to his biological daughters as my kids or my daughters, but Jack and Lily are spoken of almost as external entities, neighborhood children he happened to know. This linguistic distancing is a major indicator of his internal detachment from the missing siblings. He specifically mentions a daughter named Meadow, saying she doesn't understand now, but one day she will. He adds that she knows that Dad spoke up for Jack and Lily. This is a purely ego-driven statement. He isn't worried about whether Meadow will ever see her siblings again. He is worried about his future reputation in her eyes. He wants to ensure that the record shows he spoke up. It's an incredibly self-serving perspective. In the middle of a mystery involving two missing children, Daniel is already building his defense for an audience that hasn't even grown up yet. He is focused on his legacy as a truth teller, while the truth about what happened to Jack and Lily remains buried. When we look at the totality of Daniel Martell's statements, a grim picture emerges. From the very beginning, his behavior has been inconsistent with that of a grieving, innocent parent. He lacks the victim's curiosity, the desperate need to know what the dogs found, or the fear that they might find something terrible. Instead, he has a guilty man's certainty. He knows they won't find anything, because he knows the kids aren't there. He doesn't wonder if a neighbor took them. He knows everyone on the property is innocent, despite being asleep when the alleged disappearance happened. His arguments are built on a foundation of deflection. He complains about the cost of the search, the injuries of the searchers, and the speculation of the public. He treats the investigation as an annoyance and the police as adversaries who are forcing things on him. He claims Thursday was ordinary to avoid giving details, even though it was a day when the children was homesick. He distances himself linguistically from Jack and Lily, focusing his empathy on his biological children and the community at large rather than the two kids who are actually gone. Everything Daniel says is designed to move the spotlight away from the Lansdowne property. His final plea, "Not here, not in the woods," is the most telling of all. For 5 months, he has been telling the world to look away. But as a deception detective points out, the absence of remains in the woods doesn't prove Daniel is innocent. It proves the wandered-off story is likely a lie. If the story is a lie, then Daniel Martell isn't a victim of a tragedy. He is a narrator of a fiction. Until the focus stays here, on the property and the people who were there that Friday morning, the answers for Jack and Lily may never be found. For now, the investigation remains open, the public remains concerned, and Daniel continues to speak up, mostly for himself.